Admiral Ross stood at the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Starseeker, his golden uniform gleaming under the soft blue lights, his eyes fixed on the small blue planet displayed on the main screen. Earth, another primitive world to add to the Empire's ever-growing collection of conquered planets. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from their orbital stations," reported Lieutenant Smith, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "They seem more advanced than our initial scan suggested." Ross smiled. In his 30 years of service to the Empire, he had heard this same report countless times. Every species thought they were special, different, more advanced than they appeared. Yet all of them now served the Empire. "Send the standard greeting," he ordered. "Inform them of their upcoming integration into the Galactic Empire." The message was sent, encoded in over 1,000 languages as per standard first contact protocol. The response came faster than expected, in perfect Imperial Standard language. "We come in peace, but leave us be. You won't like what happens if you don't." Laughter echoed across the bridge. Even Ross allowed himself a small chuckle. The audacity of these primitives. Their planet still had visible pollution, their space stations were crude compared to Imperial standards, and their ships, well, they barely had any worth mentioning. "Send them the integration timeline," Ross commanded. "Standard procedure." The humans' response was immediate again. "This is your only warning. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Leave our system." Ross frowned. Something about their message felt off. Not fear, not panic, not even the usual desperate bravado he was used to hearing. It was calm, almost pitying. He shook off the feeling. The Empire had conquered over 10,000 worlds. Their technology was unmatched, their military might unchallenged for over a millennium. These humans would learn their place, just like all the others. "Lieutenant, prepare a detailed scan of their military capabilities. Let's see what we're dealing with," Ross ordered, settling into his command chair. The scans showed a puzzling mix of technology. Their orbital stations appeared primitive on the surface, yet something about their energy signatures seemed wrong. Their vessels were few but arranged in unusual patterns that didn't match any known defensive formations. "Sir," called out Officer Roberts from his station, "I'm detecting unusual activity in their asteroid belt. It appears they have some kind of mining operations there, but—" He paused, frowning at his readings. Something's not adding up in the energy signatures. Ross dismissed the concerns. He had a report to prepare for the Imperial Council. Another routine integration, another primitive species to add to the Empire's glory. He began drafting his recommendation for a small occupation force. No need to waste too many resources on such an insignificant world. As he worked, a message from Earth's governments arrived at his terminal. He opened it, expecting the usual pleas for mercy or demands for recognition. Instead, he found a single file, a historical document titled "A Brief History of Human Warfare." Ross skimmed it briefly, noting amusing details about primitive weapons like guns and nuclear bombs. How quaint. These humans seemed proud of their violent past, but they had no idea what real power looked like. He closed the file without finishing it, a mistake he would later regret bitterly. "Set course for the capital," he ordered. "The Council will want to begin integration procedures immediately." As the Starseeker turned to leave Earth's orbit, Officer Roberts spoke up one last time. "Sir, the humans are sending one final message." "Put it through," Ross said, barely paying attention. The message was short. "We warned you. Remember that in the days to come." The Starseeker jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Sol system behind. Admiral Ross had already forgotten the warning, his mind busy with plans for Earth's swift and efficient conquest. He didn't know it yet, but he had just made the biggest mistake in Imperial history. The Empire was about to learn why humans had survived countless wars among themselves, why they had turned the art of warfare into a science, and why their warnings should have been heeded. The Empire was about to learn what real war looked like. 2 weeks after Admiral Ross's report, the Imperial Council approved the establishment of a military base on Mars. They chose Mars because it seemed abandoned, just a red planet with a few small human research stations. The Empire thought it was the perfect place to begin their takeover of the solar system. General Wells stood in the command center of the newly built Imperial Mars Base Alpha, watching through the reinforced windows as construction robots assembled the final defense towers. 5,000 Imperial troops had arrived yesterday, and everything was going according to plan. Base defenses at 85% completion. General, reported Captain Lee, looking up from his monitor. The humans haven't shown any response to our presence. Wells nodded, satisfied. The humans were probably too scared to act. The base was protected by the Empire's best shield technology and armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Nothing could touch them here. "Sir," Captain Lee suddenly shouted, multiple objects approaching from Earth's direction. Wells walked calmly to the main display. "Show me." The screen lit up with dozens of small dots moving toward Mars. They weren't ships, too small, too fast. Missiles, perhaps. He almost laughed. Primitive projectile weapons couldn't possibly. "Sir, they're not slowing down." Lee's voice cracked with concern. "Impact in 30 seconds. Raise shields to maximum," Wells ordered, still unworried. "Let them waste their weapons." The objects streaked through Mars' thin atmosphere, leaving bright trails against the red sky. They moved in perfect formation, like a flock of metal birds. The base's defense systems tried to target them, but they were too quick, too unpredictable in their movements. Wells watched with growing unease as the objects suddenly split apart, each one breaking into hundreds of smaller pieces. The sky above the base turned dark with their numbers. "Sir, these readings." Lee's face had gone pale. "They're not explosive weapons." There. The first object hit the base's shields. It passed through them like they weren't even there. Others followed, thousands of them, slicing through the Empire's best defenses as if they were made of paper. "Impossible," Wells shouted. "Our shields can stop any known weapon." But these weren't known weapons. Each tiny projectile was a self-guided quantum blade, designed to cut through any energy shield by briefly shifting between dimensions. The humans had developed them years ago, keeping them secret, waiting for the day they might be needed. "Evacuate the base," Wells ordered, but it was too late. The quantum blades didn't target any living beings. Instead, they cut through specific parts of the base with surgical precision. Power cores, weapon systems, shield generators, communication arrays. Within minutes, the mighty Imperial base was completely disabled, its technology reduced to useless metal. As alarms blared and emergency power flickered, a message appeared on every screen in the base. "This was mercy. We disabled your base without taking a single life. Leave our system. This is your final warning." Wells stared at the message, his hands shaking. Through the windows, he could see Imperial troops emerging from the base, looking up at the sky in confusion and fear. The quantum blades had disappeared as quickly as they had come, leaving behind a crippled base and a shattered sense of Imperial superiority. In orbit around Mars, hidden by advanced stealth technology, a small human defense fleet watched the scene. Captain Turner of the Earth Defense Force smiled grimly as she recorded a message for the Imperial Council. "Your base on Mars has been neutralized. We chose not to harm your personnel. They are free to leave. But know this, what you saw today was a fraction of our defensive capabilities. We do not seek war, but we are very, very good at it. You have 24 hours to begin evacuation of all Imperial forces from our solar system." The message was sent, and the human ships disappeared back into their hidden positions. They knew what would come next. The Empire never retreated, never showed weakness. They would return with a full invasion fleet, thinking they needed only to bring more ships, more weapons, more troops. They still didn't understand what they were dealing with. but they would learn soon enough. The Imperial invasion fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system like a metal storm. 10,000 warships, the largest fleet assembled in the past century, dropped out of hyperspace together. Their hulls gleamed gold and silver against the darkness of space, a display of power meant to terrify their enemies. Fleet Commander James of the Earth Defense Force watched them approach on his command screen. He sat in his chair aboard the EDF flagship Defender, hidden among the asteroids of the Kuiper Belt. Unlike the flashy Imperial ships, human vessels were dark, practical, and nearly invisible to most scans. "They brought exactly what we expected," James said to his bridge crew. "Activate the network." Throughout the solar system, hidden sensors and defense platforms came to life. Thousands of small robots, disguised as space debris, began transmitting data. The humans had spent decades preparing for this moment, turning their entire solar system into one giant trap. The Imperial fleet moved forward confidently, led by Admiral Ross himself. After the Mars incident, the Empire had decided to crush Earth completely. No more warnings, no more mercy. "Sir," Ross's second-in-command said, "we're detecting no resistance. Their defense fleet must be hiding near Earth." Ross nodded. "They're afraid. Launch the first wave." Standard attack pattern. 2,000 Imperial ships surged forward, their weapons charging. They expected to face Earth's defenses near the inner planets. They were wrong. James pressed a button on his chair. "Execute Defense Plan 1." The asteroid belt came alive. What the Empire had dismissed as mining operations were actually massive weapon platforms. Hundreds of asteroids suddenly changed course, revealing enormous engines. The Empire had been so focused on looking for ships that they never considered the asteroids themselves might be weapons. "Impossible," Ross shouted as his sensors showed the approaching asteroids. Evasive maneuvers. But the asteroids weren't trying to hit the Imperial ships. Instead, they exploded into clouds of strange, shimmering dust. The dust surrounded the Imperial ships, clinging to their hulls. "Sir," the dust, "it's eating through our shields." An Imperial officer reported, panic in his voice. "It's some kind of nanite swarm." The nanites weren't designed to destroy the ships. Instead, they disabled weapons, engines, and communication systems. Within minutes, 2,000 Imperial warships hung helpless in space. Ross watched in horror as a third of his fleet was neutralized without a single shot being fired. Now he could see human ships appearing from their hiding spots, moving with perfect coordination. Their formation was unlike anything in Imperial tactical books. "Launch all remaining ships," Ross ordered. "Surround them. They can't possibly have enough of that dust to stop us all." James smiled as he watched the Imperial fleet split into attack groups. "They still think this is about weapons," he said to his crew. "Show them how humans really fight." The human fleet scattered, seemingly in panic. The Imperial ships gave chase, breaking formation as each group pursued their targets. It was exactly what the humans wanted. Small, fast human ships led Imperial vessels into perfect positions. Hidden defense platforms activated, catching groups of Imperial ships in powerful gravity nets. Automated drones launched from hollow comets, swarming the separated Imperial forces. The entire solar system had become a carefully prepared battlefield, and the Empire had walked right into it. "This is impossible." Ross slammed his fist on his command console. "They're just primitives. How can they be beating us?" The answer came in a transmission from the human flagship. "We've been fighting wars among ourselves for thousands of years. We turned space itself into a weapon because we knew someday we'd need to defend ourselves. You never had a chance." As Ross watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy he had underestimated, he finally remembered the warning they had received. He finally understood why the humans had seemed so confident, so calm in the face of Imperial power. The Empire had just lost its first major battle in 1,000 years. And this was only the beginning. 1 month after the Battle of Sol System, the Empire expected Earth to celebrate their victory. and stay within their borders. Instead, they got their second big surprise. Colonel Ryan sat in the cockpit of his stealth ship, leading a fleet of 300 human vessels through Imperial space. Unlike the huge, obvious Imperial ships, human warships were small, dark, and nearly impossible to detect. Each one carried a crew trained in what humans called guerrilla warfare, a concept the Empire had never faced before. "All ships report ready," his second-in-command reported. "The Empire still hasn't detected us." Ryan nodded. Their target was the Imperial supply base on planet Beta, a key point in the Empire's logistics network. The Empire protected it with a massive defense fleet and powerful shield generators. They thought it was safe. They were wrong. "Begin Operation Ghost," Ryan ordered. Across Imperial space, similar human fleets were approaching other targets. This wasn't a single battle. It was the start of a campaign designed to confuse and divide Imperial forces. On planet Beta, Imperial Commander Wilson was having a normal day when the alarms suddenly blazed to life. "Sir," an officer shouted, "multiple explosions in the fuel storage area." Wilson rushed to the window. The massive fuel tanks that powered Imperial ships were exploding one after another. But how? Their sensors showed no enemy ships, no incoming missiles. "Sir, we're getting reports of sabotage across the entire base," another officer called out. "Security systems are failing everywhere." What Wilson didn't know was that human infiltrators had been on his base for weeks. Disguised as maintenance workers, they had planted tiny devices throughout the facility. Now these devices were activating, causing chaos. "Launch the defense fleet," Wilson ordered. "Find the enemy ships." The Imperial warships rose from their docks, forming a defensive wall around the planet. They scanned for human vessels but found nothing. The Empire's rigid military doctrine had no answer for an enemy they couldn't see. That's when Ryan's fleet struck. The human ships appeared from nowhere, already inside the Imperial formation. They didn't try to fight the larger Imperial ships directly. Instead, they darted between them, firing precise shots at weak points, then vanishing again. "This isn't how you're supposed to fight," Wilson screamed as he watched his ships trying and failing to catch the human vessels. "Stand and face us." Ryan's voice came over all Imperial channels. "War isn't about following rules. It's about winning." The human ships moved like a swarm of angry bees, striking and disappearing before the Imperial ships could respond. They had studied Imperial tactics for years and knew exactly how to counter them. But the space battle was just a distraction. The real attack came from the infiltrators on the ground. They had accessed the base's central computer and were downloading everything: tactical data, ship movements, defense plans. The Empire was about to lose more than just a base. "Sir," Ryan's tactical officer reported, "infiltration teams report mission success. All data has been captured." Ryan smiled. "Send the message." Every screen on the Imperial base suddenly showed the same image: Earth's flag with a simple message: "This is just the beginning." Then the human fleet vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a crippled base, confused Imperial forces, and a shattered sense of security. In the following days, the Empire would learn that similar attacks had happened at 12 other locations simultaneously. Human forces had struck everywhere, gathering intelligence, destroying supplies, and vanishing before the Empire could respond. The Empire had always fought its wars through big battles and overwhelming force. Now they faced an enemy that refused to fight that way. An enemy that struck from shadows, that turned the Empire's own systems against them, that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. For the first time in its long history, the mighty Galactic Empire felt afraid. And somewhere in space, Colonel Ryan and his fleet were already planning their next strike. The Imperial Council gathered in their grand chamber on the capital world. Once, this room had seen the planning of countless victories. Today, it would witness something very different. Admiral Ross stood before them, his uniform no longer shining. Dark circles under his eyes showed his exhaustion after 3 months of constant defeats. "My lords," he began, "I've discovered something about the humans that changes everything. They weren't just ready for us. They've been preparing for war against advanced alien civilizations for over 200 years. He activated a hologram showing Earth's history. "Look at their military evolution. Every war they fought among themselves taught them something new. They turned their weaknesses into strengths. They learned to fight smarter, not just harder." The council members watched as images of human warfare through the ages played before them. From ancient battles to modern conflicts, humans had never stopped innovating, never stopped learning new ways to fight. "But here's what's truly frightening," Ross continued. "They'd been watching us for decades. Our ships, our tactics, our technology. They studied it all. Every time we conquered a new world, they learned from our mistakes." In a secret facility on Earth, General Thompson watched the live feed of Ross's presentation. Human spies had infiltrated even the Imperial Council chamber. She smiled, remembering how easy it had been to plant the surveillance devices. The Empire's arrogance made them blind to simple human ingenuity. "Launch Phase 3, she ordered. Across Imperial space, human agents activated hidden programs in the Empire's communication networks. Every citizen in the Empire suddenly received the same message on their devices. "People of the Empire, you deserve to know the truth. Your leaders told you humans were primitive. They were wrong. Watch and learn who we really are." The message was followed by videos showing human achievements, their acts of mercy toward defeated enemies, and the Empire's own atrocities against conquered worlds. It was psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Back in the council chamber, alarms began blaring. "My lords," an officer rushed in. "We're receiving reports of protests on multiple worlds. Imperial citizens are demanding answers. Some worlds are calling for independence." The council members looked at each other in shock. This had never happened before. The Empire had always controlled information, controlled the narrative. But humans had turned that control into a weapon against them. "There's more," Ross said grimly. "Remember those primitive orbital stations we saw around Earth? They weren't stations at all. They were pieces of a massive defense network, disguised to look primitive. The humans could have destroyed our entire First Fleet. They chose not to." He paused, letting that sink in. They'd been holding back, showing mercy, because unlike us, they don't want to rule the galaxy. They just want to be left alone. On a frontier Imperial world, a massive crowd gathered outside the governor's palace. They carried signs with Earth's flag and a simple message: truth and freedom. The Empire's iron grip on its territories was crumbling, not through force, but through information. General Thompson received another report. "Sir, 7 Imperial worlds have declared independence. Our infiltrators report that military units on 12 more worlds are refusing to fight against Earth." She nodded, satisfied. This was always the plan, not to destroy the Empire, but to transform it. Humans had learned from their own bloody history that lasting peace couldn't be built on fear alone. In the council chamber, Ross delivered his final revelation. "The humans sent us their history of warfare as a warning when we first met. I never finished reading it. The last chapter was titled, 'Why Empires Fall.' They tried to warn us, to teach us, and we were too proud to listen. The Empire had finally learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a spaceship, but the truth itself." Deep within the Empire's most secret facility, Grand Admiral Stone watched as technicians prepared the Empire's last hope, the Planet Killer. This massive weapon had been the Empire's ultimate secret, capable of destroying entire solar systems. They had never needed to use it before. Until now. "The weapon will be ready in 6 hours," the chief technician reported. "We can target the entire Sol system." Stone nodded grimly. The Empire was falling apart. A third of their worlds had declared independence. Their fleets were in chaos. Using the Planet Killer was extreme, but it would show everyone what happened to those who defied the Empire. But in his office, a small red light blinked on his desk. He had never noticed it before. When he looked closer, he found a message carved into his desk. "Check your weapon." At that exact moment, in Earth's Defense Command, Commander Anna reviewed the final reports from Operation Silent Knife. She allowed herself a small smile. "Confirm status of all infiltration units," she ordered. "All teams report success," her aide responded. "We've had control of their planet killer facility for 3 months. They just don't know it yet. The Empire's greatest weapon had been compromised before they even decided to use it. Human agents, disguised as maintenance workers, had modified the planet killer's core systems months ago. The Empire's own secrecy had worked against them. They were so focused on keeping people out that they never noticed the enemies already inside." Back at the Imperial facility, Stone was about to give the firing order when every screen in the control room suddenly changed. The Empire's symbol disappeared, replaced by a simple video feed. It showed the planet killer's main reactor room, but something was wrong. The date stamp on the video was from 3 months ago. They watched in horror as the recording showed human agents calmly replacing key components and reprogramming systems. "This is impossible," Stone shouted. "Our security is perfect." The video disappeared, replaced by a live feed from Earth's Defense Command. Commander Anna looked at them calmly. "Your security depends on fear and force," she said. "Ours depends on understanding people. Your own workers let us in because we treated them with respect, something you never did." Stone rushed to the weapon controls, but they no longer responded to Imperial commands. The planet killer, their ultimate weapon, had been under human control all along. "You should know," Anna continued, "we didn't destroy your weapon. We reprogrammed it. It now produces energy that can power entire worlds. We turned your tool of destruction into a source of life." Across the Empire, news of the planet killer's compromise spread quickly. The last loyal worlds lost faith in their leaders. The mighty empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was collapsing, not from human weapons, but from human wisdom. In orbit around the facility, a fleet of Imperial ships prepared for one final battle. They would attack Earth with everything they had left. They expected the humans to do the same. Instead, the human ships formed a defensive line and broadcast a message. "We will not attack. We will only defend. The choice to end this war has always been yours." Stone watched his tactical display as more Imperial ships refused to fight. Some turned away. Others powered down their weapons. The Empire's last stand was ending not with a great battle, but with a simple choice. "We've lost," Stone finally said, his voice heavy with realization. "Not because they were stronger, but because they were smarter. They'd beat us weeks ago. We just didn't know it." He looked at the message still playing on his screen. "Your empire is built on fear. But fear only works until people stop being afraid. We learned that lesson centuries ago. Today, you learn it too." The Empire's last stand became its final lesson. They had faced an enemy who knew that true victory doesn't come from destroying your opponents, but from showing them a better way. The peace conference took place on neutral ground, a space station orbiting Jupiter. Representatives from Earth sat on one side of the grand table, Imperial delegates on the other. The mood was tense but hopeful. Admiral Ross, now acting as the Empire's chief negotiator, found himself facing a familiar face, Captain Turner, the same officer who had warned them after the Mars incident. She looked at him not with hatred or triumph, but with understanding. "Before we begin," Turner said, "there's something you should know. We've had faster-than-light travel for over 300 years." The Imperial delegation burst into shocked whispers. Ross felt his mouth go dry. "That's impossible. We never detected any sign of it." Turner smiled and pressed a button. The station's windows shifted, revealing hundreds of previously invisible human ships surrounding Jupiter. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the Empire didn't even know existed. "We discovered your empire 4 centuries ago," Turner explained. "We watched you conquer peaceful worlds, force your rule on others. So we prepared. Every technology we developed had 2 versions. One we showed the galaxy, and one we kept hidden." She gestured to a large screen showing various star systems. "We have research bases in 50 different systems, observation posts near every major imperial world. We know more about your empire than you do." Ross remembered the first warning they had received and finally understood. Earth hadn't been afraid because they had never been in danger. They had been ready for centuries. "But why?" he asked. "If you were so powerful, why didn't you stop us sooner?" "Because we learned from our own history," Turner replied. "Rushing in to fight evil often makes you become what you're fighting against. Instead, we waited, prepared, and when you finally found us, we showed you a better way." The peace terms were surprisingly gentle. The empire would become a confederation of free worlds. The former imperial worlds could choose their own governments. Earth would share its technology, but only for peaceful purposes. In the station's observation deck, Ross stood with Turner, watching Earth shine in the distance. "There's one thing I still don't understand," he said. "You could have destroyed us completely. Why show mercy?" Turner pointed to Earth. "See that blue planet? Its history is full of empires that fell because they only knew how to rule through fear. But it's also full of people who learned to forgive, to help their former enemies become friends. We chose to learn from the second group. Across the former empire, a new age was beginning. Imperial warships were being converted into exploration vessels. The Planet Killer facility now provided power to 12 worlds. Former enemies worked together to build something new. On Earth, in a deep underground vault, the Old Earth Defense Council held its final meeting. Their centuries-long mission was complete. Humanity had not only defended itself, but had helped create a better galaxy. "Should we reveal everything?" asked General Thompson. "Tell them about the other alien empires we're watching." The council president shook his head. "Not yet. One challenge at a time. There are other threats out there, other empires that might threaten peace. We'll continue our watch, silent guardians of a galaxy that doesn't know it needs us." As the meeting ended, they updated the massive screen showing their secret monitoring of various alien civilizations. Earth had more hidden watchers, more secret bases, more advanced technology than anyone suspected. But they would keep these secrets, use them only when necessary, always working toward a peaceful galaxy. Back on the Jupiter station, Ross looked at the peace treaty one last time before signing. "You know," Turner said, "the best victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's turning them into a friend." As Ross signed the treaty, he realized that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their advanced technology or military strength. It was their ability to learn from history, to show mercy when they could have shown force, and to understand that true power lies not in conquest, but in wisdom. The war was over. A new dawn had begun, and humanity would continue its silent watch over the galaxy, ready to teach the same lesson to anyone else who might threaten the peace they had helped create.